listening to the Straight to Video podcast with Rob Lane.
What's up? How's it going? And thanks for checking out my show, Straight to Video. Hope all is great in your world right now as we seem to be rocketing towards the end of 2021. November already. That is crazy. So I always like to bring fun and interesting people onto this show who I meet or find out about, and today's is no exception. I was speaking to a friend at a party just the other day. I think we might have been talking about getting older, the value of time and all stuff like that when you go off on a tangent. But I was saying how there's just so much great stuff out there that you just can't hope to find it all or get the chance to enjoy everything. Now I'm talking in the most simplest form of films or music or just the creativity that is out there. I always love finding new bands or cool under the radar films, but I also love seeing people's artwork and the things they sell. All of this inspires my own creativity, but man, I feel like there just isn't enough time to take it all in. That said, I guess you just got to enjoy what you can, but always be on the lookout for something new and cool. So what am I getting at? Well, a few years ago, either on Facebook or Instagram, I came across a really fun page called 80s Summer Camp. Obviously, I was sold straight away. Whether this be a band, a new film, whatever it may be, I was in. I never went to a summer camp. Did we even have those over here in the UK? I don't remember. Even if we did, I would have been terrified to go. I was pretty reserved growing up, and maybe still am, but back then taking me out of my comfort zone would have been terrifying for me, even though I've learned over the years that those things are the best things to do. Scare yourself into doing something new once in a while, and you probably will have the time of your life. Anyways, 80s Summer Camp wasn't a band, it wasn't a film. What it actually is I guess a little tough to explain, but I'll give it a shot. Set up by Canadian Keith Muise after dealing with various traumatic events in his life which led him down a path of depression and many struggles with mental health, he needed a new outlet. Not only for himself, but to also help others who were feeling a similar way. 80s Summer Camp will be, let's call it the umbrella for all of this. I say umbrella because the message he spreads and the various ways he does it isn't specific. It may be in the form of positive messages, videos, song parodies, live events, anything as long as it's promoted towards awareness of mental health, positivity and hope, all with a great fun attitude and of course a nod towards the greatest pop culture decade of all, well, the pop culture decade, the 1980s. It's a wonderful project which I knew I had to learn more about, and hopefully you'll get a kick out of hearing all about it too. And perhaps if you've had some struggles or know someone who has, then 80s Summer Camp or just its old philosophy can maybe make things a little easier for you. Before we dive in, as always, shout to my friends Dead Skull Coffee. I've been needing some of this stuff as the days get shorter and colder to keep me going, and I can't recommend their rock and roll coffee enough. For listeners of this show, you can grab 15% off your order by entering the discount code STV on checkout over at deadskullcoffee.co.uk. And there's been some fun stuff happening over on the Straight to Video Patreon page. We had a lot of cool things over Halloween, and I'm just posting some vintage blog posts which I've found that haven't been available online for some time for people to check out. All that along with a bonus podcast, early heads up on guests, and some exclusive merch can all be found at patreon.com/STVpod. Everyone who is part of the Patreon is helping grow and support this show more than they realise, and it's massively appreciated. Alright, let's get into this chat with Keith Muise of 80s Summer Camp. After the chat, if you want to find out a little more about the great things he's doing, then please visit 80ssummercamp.com or find it all over social media at simply 80s Summer Camp. It's a lot of fun and in return spreads a really positive message, so please check it out. But in the meantime, please enjoy my straight to video chat with Keith Muise of 80s Summer Camp.
Relying on a myth. If it's real, I'm not convinced.
How you doing, Keith? Good to see you.
Not too bad, man. You?
Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. Thanks for doing this for us and hooking up. So where are you coming to us from now? Is it, let me see if I can pronounce this right. Is it Newfoundland?
Yeah. Here we say like Newfoundland. So it's like, sounds like Newfoundland, but it's not. It's Newfoundland is technically. But yeah, Newfoundland, whatever. It doesn't matter.
It's a place I'm not familiar with in Canada when you mentioned where it was. I mean, because it's only like 3.5 hours time difference, which is nuts.
Yeah, we're the easternmost province. We're just an island out in the Atlantic. So it's kind of like people call it like Scotland-ish. We used to be an English colony, actually, until I think like 1950 or so.
What's the access to like the mainland for you guys then?
An 8 or 9 hour ferry, or you got to fly.
Wow. How often do you get over to the mainland or down to the US? Is that something you regularly do?
Yeah, I mean, in normal times, in COVID times, it's kind of, hindered a little, but usually we go to the mainland like kind of every summer sort of thing. I recently just moved back to Newfoundland from Alberta, almost on the other end of Canada. So yeah, so we lived there for quite a few years and we just came back here. This is where we were born, but we were gone for like 15 years, but now we're back.
Oh, wow. Because I know Alberta plays quite a part in your story and the 80s summer camp story as well. So I guess we should start a little about what 80s summer camp is all about. I know there are a few events leading up to it that brought it to life. It's certainly turning some negative into a positive from your point of view. For
sure. I mean, I've always been like the class clown, like the goofy movie nerd. We'd be doing Saturday Night Live skits every morning in high school, driving our classmates crazy. So I always had that sort of goofiness about me. So years later, I'm living in Fort McMurray, and my father and my grandmother, my father and his mother, they both died of cancer within a 13-month span. So that kind of put me in a spot where, I wasn't myself for years.
Was that the kind of first tragedies that you'd had in your life?
In years, yeah. I mean, when I was 11, my grandfather actually committed suicide day before Easter. So that kind of impacted me, back then. But when you're younger, you don't really look at all, the psychological and sociological impacts of things. It's just that loss. That's all you focus on. Kind of that was pushed into the back of my mind over the years, and it was always present, like suicide in anyone's family. It's always something that kind of, it's always in the back of your mind sort of thing. So years later, I mean, it was like 20 years later. We hadn't had any major losses or any major sicknesses in our family for 2 decades. And then out of nowhere, I was just about to finish my teaching practicum and become a full-fledged teacher. This was a milestone for me. My self-esteem was growing, and I was like, yeah, I finally got my life together. And then I got a call right after school one day when I was practice teaching, and it was my father. He said, I got lung cancer. It's bad. They're giving me 6 months to live. Right. So I was like, shit. So he went through a bunch of therapies and stuff like that. And then when he got back from the hospital about maybe 25 days later, my grandmother, his mom, who pretty much, raised me every weekend, every summer, every, spare moment, she fell and broke her wrist. And then she found out she had cancer. It was brutal, right? It was like our family went from not really having a lot of things impact us in terms of death and sickness and whatever else to complete like DEFCON 7, right? We were like, what the hell do we do? So yeah, in that situation, I just went into kind of robot mode. You know how like your body has like that physical shock, you get hit by a car, you're not really feeling the pain till later, right? That's kind of like what I did. My grandmother was given a month to live. My father was given 6 months. He lasted 45 days from diagnosis till gone, and I missed him by 1 day. He lived here in Newfoundland, and I lived in Alberta, and I said, I'm going to fly home, I'm going to see you. So I ended my practicum early. My professors let me out early, booked a ticket, and we were ready to go in the morning, and he died that night. So we were like, shit, right? It's so then we flew home, and I decided I would stay home and take care of my grandmother for as long as I could. So I stayed home for about 7 months and took care of her. And it was really hard to see her suffering and going through that pain of cancer. But then I would look out her window and see my dad's house. We just buried him, and it was just such a colossal cloud of negativity and pain. And it took me years to kind of get on an even keel.
When was that? What year was that?
That was 2011, 2012. It's either 2010, 2011 or 2011, 2012. Yeah, so that's when all that happened. And then finally, years later, I was starting to get on, an even keel. And I was like dealing with that depression. And I really never ever dealt with the grief, right? Like I said, I was in robot mode, but I just kept it on. I worked 3 jobs just to keep my mind going, played as many sports as I could, watched every movie ever released. But then we had this massive fire in Fort McMurray. And 4 days later, my father-in-law died of cancer a day before my wife got home to see him. Or no, not a day. It was like an hour.
Because it was a wildfire, right, in Fort McMurray in 2016. It's weird how some things don't impact us in different parts of the world. I mean, that must have been like a huge event. I think I read, was it like the largest evacuation in Alberta's history?
Oh, yeah. In Canadian, I think it might have been Canadian history, but it was huge, right? Like that morning, I went home for lunch at about 11 in the morning, and the sky was beautiful. It was a sunny day. And as I went back to work, there was kind of a little bit of smoke. And a friend of mine who lived there his whole life was like, you need to get out. And I was like, what's going on? So a couple nights before I'd packed up emergency evacuation stuff because, I watched enough 80s movies to know when things are going bad, right? So I had things ready to go anyways. And then the fire just took off. It burned like thousands of buildings, and we're escaping the city, and it's like walls of fire all around us. It's like in like post-apocalyptic movies where the choppers are all flying over top and like jets and stuff. It was just like that. We got over top of this hill on the way out of town. This huge propane tank or some kind of gas tank exploded off in the distance. So it was kind of like you just see out of the corner of your eye this big mushroom cloud of fire, like boom, and we're escaping. And just as we got out of town, we got the call that her dad took a turn for the worse with cancer.
Just like, keep hitting us with all this crap.
Yeah, like what the hell, right? Because Ross, my father-in-law, he was like the Rock. He'd been fighting cancer for like 6 years, but, he was always the guy that we call to say, what the hell do we do? We're in a giant fire, right? And he would calmly be like, just drive to here, or do this, get gas, get water. But yeah, this time we couldn't turn to him because he was dealing with his own demise in the hospital. So we escaped. It took us like 15 hours to drive 100 kilometers out of town. Like it was crazy. And once we got out of town, we situated at my sister's house, and then my wife flew to Newfoundland across the country to see her dad. And yeah, she was literally about an hour away when he passed.
Man, how long was it before you could get back home to Fort McMurray after the fires? Was you out there quite a while?
It took about a month, but right across the street from our house, like 10 houses burned down. And then they had the houses sprayed with this chemical stuff. So my son was only about 2.5 at the time. So I'm super cautious. I'm like safety man, like I'm overboard when it comes to that stuff. I was just like, no, we're not taking him back. Just any chance, anything could happen to his lungs or whatever, forget it. So I go up there, and I'm working on cleaning the house, and I get pneumonia, and like bad, like I had to go to the hospital. Like they thought I might have had lung cancer, but it turned out to just be like a bad infection. And I was sick for like 45 days. Yeah. So, and that was our summer, right? So it was just like, thank you very much, universe.
Where's your headspace at this point then? Because you're getting on track. I don't want to say like normality prior to the fires, but then everything happens. And did you just kind of drop back again to how you was a few years before?
I started to slide there, but on the way down, we were in gridlock for, it was like a 250 kilometer line of traffic in gridlock, moving inches. Like every 10 minutes, you might move 2 car lengths. While we were there, I was just like, okay, I can't panic. Can't, lose my shit. I got to keep it together. So I started putting down the window and just talking to people about random craziness. I put down the window once, and I was like, I turned up Susudio by Phil Collins, and I was and I just kept cranking it and like moving my head funny, and people were just laughing and stuff. So I was like, okay, this is what I need to do. Like I need to get back to that goofy guy from high school who, even though I went through a lot of stuff in high school, everybody does, I still always found a way to be that goofy guy and use it for me and for whoever's around me, right? I just said, okay, this is it. I'd been feeling the depression and the anxiety and stuff kind of subsided once my son was born, but the bad luck train just drove through my town over and over and over, right? Like my son was born, 3 months later, the house we were renting flooded. So the whole thing was like basically ruined. So we sent him home to Newfoundland with my wife for, months. And then when it got fixed and they came back, I broke my foot.
Oh,
Then I couldn't
man.
walk for 6 months. So I'm like, what the hell? Like, what did I do? So I'm Native Canadian, Aboriginal. So, the whole poltergeist, we built our house on Native burial ground kind of thing, really didn't apply to us. So I was kind of like, what the hell did we do? Like, how did I get cursed kind of thing? Then it was like, it's either make or break, right? I'm either going to dig a hole and jump in or do something. And then I had this idea, I don't know, a few months before maybe, I was going to do this thing where I'd start doing lots more videos and comedy and whatever else. And I was going to call it 80s Summer Camp. The whole idea behind 80s Summer Camp was, that whole Meatballs, all those movies where kids go to camp and are having like the time of their life. But I'd never gone to summer camp. So I didn't, I just go and buy everything I saw in movies where everybody's so enthusiastic. They show up at a party and they're like, yeah, like freaking out. And, that teen wolf kind of attitude.
It probably wasn't like that at all. So your imaginary vision of it is probably a lot more fun than it actually was.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And like I say, it was all fueled by movies. I mean, growing up, a lot of my escape, a lot of escape for a lot of people is movies and TV and music and stuff. So then I just said, how can I personify that enthusiasm? So then I said, okay, I need like some kind of logo or something. I can't draw or anything. So I just had this scrappy idea, and then I sent it off to a bunch of different graphic artists. And then one guy was like, here you go. And I was like, this is the first guy to send it back, and this is perfect. Right? Like, I was like, yeah. And so then I just started making funny videos and whatever from the place that we were staying during the fire. Just kept doing parody songs and things like that, and using that to kind of, whenever I was feeling down, I would just shoot a video, do something funny, do something goofy, and it just snowballed, right? And then I just kept going with it.
With everything you was going through, how easy was that to convey to your wife how you were feeling? Was she aware of everything, or did you just keep it all inside prior to coming up with this new idea?
It was hard for me to really explain everything that was going on because, like, at the time, she had just lost her dad. I'd gone through that years before. She knew that it impacted me big time, but I kind of kept it sort of internalized while our son was born and we were trying to find positive things to like use to move on kind of thing. And at the time, because I was finding things to sort of mask how I was feeling, I didn't even really know how bad I was getting in terms of the anxiety and depression and stuff. But it was a good outlet to, you're feeling like garbage, to go and make people laugh on the internet.
Because I think you describe it in a very similar way as like physical health too, in that you're always going to have down days, but you have to maintain it as well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's there's no quick fix. I mean, mental health, just like your physical health, it takes time, takes effort. It's just a matter of trying. That's the hardest part. Any level of feeling, like if you're feeling depressed or if you're feeling super happy, once you become good at that and, conditioned to it, it comes easy to you. If you're feeling depressed for years, it's like your discomfort zone. That's the easiest way to go. Like fighting against that, the chemical imbalances or the emotional imbalances or whatever that's causing that, that's effort. Whether or not the effort is good for you or not, like working out. It's super easy to eat takeout every day, even though it's bad for you. But if you want to come back from that, you gotta be disciplined. But yeah, I mean, it is a ongoing sort of battle.
Once you started talking about how you're feeling through like the 80s summer camp and putting your thoughts out there, did it kind of make it easier to communicate with people and getting feedback from people who are in like a similar situation, saying, "Oh, it's great that you're able to talk about it." And especially, it's like a guy thing as well. I think we do keep things bottled up a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, it was. Once I started talking about it, I knew I couldn't go kind of half in. I had to go like full Monty kind of thing, right? Because if for people to relate to it, I couldn't just sugarcoat things. So right out the gate, when I started talking about mental health, I just mentioned suicide, suicidal thoughts, losing my grandfather, how I felt after that. I mean, for years, I kind of had it in my head, like this could be an eventuality for me because my grandfather did this. I didn't know he had schizophrenia. When you're a little kid, you just think, okay, well, my grandfather killed himself. I'll probably wind up doing that. And it's the whole, as humans, we make our self-identity based on, our perceptions of how people look at us. It's not exactly, because a lot of times we get it wrong. We think that person thinks this of me, but it's usually not accurate. Building that, self-identity for so many years based on false perceptions. It had me as, this loser who could never do anything. Once I realized, okay, well, I'm not as much of a loser as I keep telling myself, then I had to get over that and just say, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to help anyone, then I just got to be wide open book. If I'm having a terrible day, if my mental health is struggling, admit it. If I'm having a really depressing day and I feel like the world is shit, admit it. Because like health is good this week, it'll be good forever. It's not how it works in any aspect. I mean, health-wise, mentally, all of it. If you got a sore leg and I'm going to power through this, and then you wind up breaking your leg, then you're like, shit, I should have just wore a brace for a week. The same thing with your mental health. So if you're like, I'm having a bad day, I'm just going to push through or whatever, you can do that for a couple of days. But if this lasts a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and a lot of people you're looking at, you talk to them and you go, well, how long have you felt this way? Years. So why are we allowing ourselves to feel like that for years? The biggest things are the stigma around mental health. Like you said, for males, it's even worse because males we got to be strong, right? Like all of our heroes, like growing up, we would never think Arnold Schwarzenegger would have self-esteem issues ever in his life. That's who we modeled ourselves after. And the generation before us, they modeled themselves after the people who went away to war and the people who fought Hitler. So it's been this macho, there's nothing wrong, I'm fine attitude for decades. That obviously has, it trickled over to women. I mean, and because of these attitudes, people don't really know how to express themselves and they don't know how to handle someone when they are expressing themselves.
It's a double-edged sword in that way.
Exactly, right? Because it's like, well, somebody's being really honest and open to me. If you're not used to hearing that, then you're just like, deer in the headlights. How are you going to help someone who's like, I've had suicidal thoughts lately. It's like, what?
It's all new territory these last few years, a lot of it.
Yeah.
Especially bringing it into the public vein. It's like whole new, like you say, no one really knows how to communicate about it. And everyone's just finding the way, but it's just kind of breaking down those boundaries of at least making that start and getting the word out there.
Totally. It's like you said, it's difficult because it's a problem that has existed since humans started walking upright, but we're only now talking about it after thousands of years, That's incredible and heartbreaking at the same time. How many people have we lost because we couldn't talk about it? Then I said, okay, well, I just need to break down the walls of mental health, talk about it so much that it's just normal. If an alien landed here, it would be crazy for the first couple of years. Like if Alf came here or like E.T. was real.
Good reference.
Like phone home. We'd be like, wow, that's crazy, man. E.T.'s real. We would only care for like a year and then it would just become normal. And mental health shouldn't be an exception to that. We should be able to get used to speaking about it, especially because there's so much on the line.
So what was the initial reaction to your idea when you put it out there? Did it get traction pretty fast, or was there a particular post or something that you did when you knew you're onto a good thing?
So right away, people were like, well, how are you going to get the message out there? If you just say you're talking about mental health, you're going to run up into like resistance. So I said, okay, well, I can just make funny videos, make music videos, do whatever, positive posts, little poems, anything positive I could do and just fire it into the social media world. So sometimes it'll just be like a meme or a little poem or whatever comes to mind. And then I said, okay, well, I got to keep doing it is the thing, right? It's the consistency. So it's no good to do it 1 month and then skip 4 months and then go, by the way, mental health. I'm very principle oriented, I guess you could say. So once I pick a lane, that's it. I'm like, no. If like Twilight vampires, I got no time for them. Okay. Vampires should not go out in the sun. I don't care what anybody says. If the Lost Boys vampires met up with the Twilight vampires, they would just destroy them. Vampires should never go out in the daytime, even though Dracula, the classical Bram Stoker's, he could walk around in the sun. I don't care. I don't care what he was doing. Okay. Lost Boys vampires would blow up in the sun and they would kill Twilight vampires any day. I'll take that to the grave. You'll never convince me. So that's the way I am with this mental health crusade is that, we got to keep going. We got to keep telling people you're not alone. So I started selling T-shirts. I used the money, buy more shirts, give them away. So a lot of friends are like, why don't you just start a T-shirt business where you sell them? And I'm like, no, because that's not what it's all about. We've had people in places where they couldn't get a shirt or it was like, $100 just to mail it to them. And they're like, can I print my own shirt? And I'm like, yeah, totally. Like, as long as you're not like out printing thousands of them in a sweatshop or something, I don't really care about that. So, we've sent the logo to anyone who wants to print it because it's not about making money off of T-shirts. It's about, you got this little symbol that you can say, okay, yeah, I'm not alone. That's it. That's all it's about. And then if you back it up with as much positivity as you can. For the last year and a half, I've been kind of caught up in the whole COVID war where I find myself slipping into negativity because of all the craziness. I go, okay, I'm yapping about COVID on my personal Facebook, my 80 summer camp stuff. I'm not going to go there. It's a struggle, right? Because I want to be involved in the world, but I also want to make sure I keep being positive. It's just that consistency. You just got to keep going.
I think you said with this project, you see it as reconnecting people through old school techniques as well, things you learned growing up. Is there anything in particular?
Yeah, I mean, and again, stupid COVID, because before that, we started doing variety shows and concerts and everything else. And we were planning an actual summer camp, but it would be for adults. So imagine this summer camp where you're having all kinds of fun and, a few drinks with the adult friends. And then Chasin pops out of the woods and chases everyone just for fun. Because the problem with growing up is nobody when they're younger says, man, I can't wait to get older and worry about bills and shit all the time. No one ever says that, right? Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? The answer is never depressed and angry and worrying about bills and whatever else. So why are we allowing this forced existence to be our definition? We're all kids at heart, want fun. We want, laughter. We want to do things that make us happy. But a lot of times we define ourselves as the things that we can't control that go along with being adults. I wanted to give people a chance to be goofy, be silly, go out and play a game of tag with the kids, with the adults, whoever. Do all the stuff we used to do when we were kids. We were so content and so happy with life when we were younger that we would sit around with a stick and just playing with a stick and just hanging out with each other. And that was really rich and that was rewarding because we were around each other. Just that feeling of being in a group, hey, what are you guys doing? We're going to go throw a ball at school. And now it's you're not having fun unless you're going to Disneyland or a trip to France or, everything has to be this grand production now. Whereas our old school kind of grassroots stuff, that was what we enjoyed. We would kill to get outside with our friends, to sit on a curb and just talk. So why the hell don't we value that anymore? And it's so attainable. It's just that we let ourselves be defined by these new, like I said, what are you going to do when you grow up? What do you want to do?
How is it being a dad now? Do you try and pass some of that on to your son?
Oh, definitely. I mean, he's a little goofball in his own. And, he's like, I want to do some YouTube videos or whatever. And I'm like, all right, let's do it up. And I try to, promote anything he's doing. But it's, he has a million toys. I saved a bunch of 80s toys for him, so he has that influence. But I try to teach him that, we can have fun just going outside, smacking a tree with a stick is awesome. He enjoys that. He's like, yeah, this is cool, right? Because that's real life. We were tricked in the 90s. Beverly Hills 90210 came out. All these shows where everybody was rich and everybody needed to be rich. We all wanted to be like the Brad Pitts and the rich people. And why? What the hell for? We're already rich. We had friends, we had this and that. That's what I value. I mean, life is way too short. Losing so many of our family members in such a short amount of time really got me thinking about, life is not, never ending.
It's crazy that it's either tragedies like that bring that to light or getting older that bring it to light. It's those two things.
Yeah. And I mean, and you hear it all the time, live like you were dying or whatever else. And I'm not saying be stupid and blow all of your savings. But if you do, man, who cares? You can make more money. Oh, your kid dented the car. Gives a shit. They invented bumpers back in the day so people could actually bump into different vehicles. So whatever. Who cares?
Awesome, man. And you're a special education teacher as well, too. Was teaching something you always wanted to go into?
No. Like I said, that self-identity that I created for, myself, I never thought I could do anything. The way my psyche always kept going was started playing basketball, really loved it, practiced super hard, and got pretty good at it. Someone would say to me, man, you're getting great. In my head, nah, graduate high school, that's an accomplishment. Not everybody graduates. Who cares? Get a university degree. Something must have messed up at the registrar's office. They must have gave me that by accident. Get a good job. So at the time I was working in social services, helping kids one-on-one, working in group homes, things like that. And still in my mind, I'm a fraud. I shouldn't be here. I'm a loser. Why are they letting me influence these kids? I have nothing to offer them, because I was the class clown. I was the guy who never should have went anywhere and did whatever. But I kept perpetuating that in my own mind because you get into that. You don't see the value in yourself, even when people are telling you it, because it's hard to believe sometimes. And you'll see the most confident people out there who on the inside are, a lot of that projection of confidence is sometimes, a defense mechanism to mask low self-esteem. And that's when I started saying, you're awesome to everyone. So I started a speech one time. I talked to a large group of people and I told them, I'm here to brainwash you. I go, this is just like a cult. By the time you leave here, you're all going to be listening exactly what I'm saying. And they're all like, what the hell? So I'm like, I want to brainwash every single person in the room. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to get crazy. I want to brainwash you into thinking that you're awesome and that you can do whatever you want and that you are a great person, that you're beautiful, that you're smart, that you're talented. And if you keep doing that, if somebody calls you every single day and says, man, you're awesome, even if you don't believe it, eventually you're just going to have to go, oh, geez, I guess I'm awesome. So then I started saying, okay, well, we need to do that with kids from an early age. So the age-old thing was always teachers, like this teacher's like 45 or whatever, like my age. And, they're talking to this young kid and they're like, you can be anything when you grow up, right? We've all heard that. Well, where's the proof, man? Like, I don't know. Why should I believe you? We kind of get that blanket statement and then we don't really get it reinforced. And it's not real, because then all of society goes off into this thing where it's you promote and you reward and excellence, right? So if one kid, you guys call it football. So if kids playing football and you got 10 kids playing, does the coach tell every one of them, wow, you're some kind of player, keep it up? Probably not.
No.
Because we reward the excellence, we showcase it. And that's fine. But the rest of them, you should still say it. Even if it's not true, maybe a couple more kids will become awesome. And there's no harm in it. If you get some player who's delusional and they think that they're the best ever because their coach told them, and they go out, they'll get their butt kicked and they'll figure it out, right? Natural consequences, right? But just instilling that idea that, you are awesome, you are great. If that's our blanket, brainwash for kids, for everyone, there's no negatives going to come from that.
They can take that in whatever direction they want. It's just instilling a bit of confidence in them. It's not saying, yes, you're going to be amazing at this particular thing. I guess it's just giving them inner confidence to try something which they want to pursue.
That was my idea about it, right? It's like, same can be said for adults. You have a lot of adults walking around right now and they think they failed in their life. So say you have like a 50-year-old, 60, 70, whatever, and they're looking back on things in their life as failures. I like to point out, if you're 50, if you're 60, if you're 70, you didn't fail in life, man. You just outlived like a lot of people. So that's a huge success. If you get from 0 years old to 40, you're doing great. A lot of people don't get that much time on this planet, right? So seeing your life as a failure, regardless of what the circumstances are. I mean, there's a few instances in life where I'm like, yeah, okay, you're a wash, but, they're not very many, It's extreme situations, that's unforgivable, but everything else, there's always something positive in everybody's life, but you don't look for that and you don't promote that yourself because you get in that rut of thinking, I didn't become Brandon from 90210. I'm not Tom Cruise, so I'm nothing. I'm not rich. I don't have 5 cars. When none of that stuff even matters, most people would be content having some friends and having a spouse, maybe a dog, set your goals for you, not for what somebody else tells you they should be.
I think that's the most important thing. Don't be worrying what everybody else is doing. Just focus on you and what makes you happy.
Yeah, I mean, especially if it's negative. So if the crowd is going negative, that crowd's not worth talking to. If they're all like, yeah, we're all having the greatest time, come on, then yeah, do it. Join up in that crowd, get brainwashed by that cult of everybody's awesome. I
want some of that.
Exactly, right? I mean, we don't have enough time for most of the shit that we waste our time on. And especially, feeling bad about who we are, who we should have been, who we could have been, all of that. We all could have been 10,000 other things than we are. I think it's like 500 million billion chance of being born. So we're friggin' lucky to be here. Why would we waste that? Like, we won the lottery of lotteries of lotteries. And we're here somehow. The universe put us here and we're letting stupid shit dictate how we feel. Sometimes it's chemical. You could send somebody to 1 million seminars. You could tell them they're awesome 1,000 times. and it might not help them. They might need medication or something else too, right? But if you create that, that perpetual, hey, you're awesome. By the way, I forgot to tell you you're awesome. At least they got something. And it feels good for you because like our secret handshake is like in the movie Men at Work with Charlie Sheen from the 80s. You ever see that one?
Yeah.
So they go like this. So then ours is like this. And then you look at the other person, you go, you're awesome. You can't do it without smiling because it's so goofy and stupid, right? It's little things like that. If we can add that to the world, what's the harm, right?
80s summer camp, it's something for everybody. It's not just for kids or adults, it's for everybody. But I'm wondering, how do you explain it to younger kids? Are they like, what's the 80s? Or do they surprise you with what they know?
Well, my son, he watched Goonies like right away, as soon as he understood the language, right? Whenever the kids would say shit, we'd be like, hey, like screaming. But yeah, no, it's such a cultural phenomenon the 80s were. It was the birth of products. Before that, you might have had a few movie toys and stuff like that. But the 80s, man, they just said, okay, we got 10 movies. We want 7 toy lines. We want every one of these to have a shirt, sheets, a lamp. We want it all, right? So the 80s, when you explain it to kids, is the birth of pop culture. To me, anyway, that's how I feel about it. The 70s, man, it was radical, like cool. You watch Dazed and Confused, and you're like, shit, I wish I grew up in the 70s. But the 80s was when it was all born. I mean, that's when pop culture went from, the Zach Morris big blocky cell phone to the iPhone 13 or whatever the hell they're on now, right? That was the jump in cultural kind of influence and saturation. And 80s were the best. I mean, the 90s are obviously great too, right?
Like you mentioned, you spread the word through the T-shirts, and they've been worn by some really cool people and celebrities, some of which I'm a fan of, including Martin Kove from Karate Kid and Cobra Kai, and Andre Gower from the Monster Squad, who I've had on this podcast. He's been seen wearing one as well.
Oh, Andre was a dream come true. I mean, I had this cousin named Jervis, and he would show me horror movies that there's no possible way any adult would let a kid my age watch, right? But he would sneak them away from my uncle, and then we would watch them. And so we were watching like Return of the Living Dead and all that stuff, and we were super young, like way too young, right? I still don't sleep normal now because of this, but when we saw Monster Squad, it was like, yes. We're going to do this. We're going to start a Monster Squad. And we did, but we never found any monsters, right? But yeah, like having him wear the shirt was like, oh yeah.
I'll put you on the spot then, Monster Squad or Goonies.
Oh, I got to go Monster Squad. I got to. Goonies is great. I mean, it's essential. Yeah, I got to go Monster Squad just because I'm partial to the horror movies.
There's some magic in there. I don't know what it is, but there's some special magic in Monster Squad. I don't know whether it's because it's like, if you are comparing the two together and Monster Squad is the underdog movie, you got to go with the underdog. I don't know what it is.
Oh, man, it's gold, though. I mean, it's like the guy who plays the werewolf, what's his name? He was in Fright Night Part 2 as well. When he's screaming in the phone booth, like, that's so cool. Seeing that, I mean, my father's house was like here and my nan's house was like, I don't know, 100 feet away. And I would have to have both of them looking out their picture windows with the lights on. And then I would sprint because I was like, the monsters are going to get me in the woods, right? Thinking about it when I got older, I'm like, why did it matter if they were watching? So they're just going to see me get killed in the yard? And what are they going to do? They're not going to fight a werewolf.
Excellent. You mentioned you've introduced your son to the Goonies. What other films are you looking forward to introducing him to? Everything. I
can't wait. Like he's not at the age yet where we're going to start showing him like Aliens and Alien and, and Predator and all.
You can't wait for that though.
Oh my God. Like Commando, Rambo, all the essential 80s movies, 90s movies, right? Because to me, movies have changed massively. Realism. Everybody's too, like their shirts are never dirty. Back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, it was like watching, real life. And I just can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
Will you be taking him to see the new Ghostbusters?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, he loves the old one. He didn't mind the newest installment as much, but he really loves the old one.
Everything looks gold so far for the new one. I'm excited, man.
Yeah. How could we not be, right? Even if it is garbage, it's like the Hobbit movies. Like you still got to go back to Middle Earth, even though it was like, yeah, we rushed it.
Sweet, man. I'll wrap things up, Keith, but I love your saying. I don't know if it's your saying or one which you pass on, but you can let one little negative thing ruin your day, but you want to let one little positive thing make it better. Is that your saying, something you came up with? Because that's gold, that is right there.
I don't know. Did I quote it on the bottom of the post?
I've seen it somewhere where you've said it, and I thought that's just awesome.
I agree with it. I don't remember if I wrote it or... That's the problem with being so influenced by pop culture. There's movie quotes that I don't even know are from a movie because I saw it like 25 years ago. So I'm like, did I say that or is that real? And then I'll like write something because I love writing fiction and coming up with movie ideas and everything else. So I'll come up with some stuff and I'll be like, did I just make that up or is this already a movie series? Or like, what's going on here, right?
See, that's you putting yourself down again. Like, you're not good enough to do it. Like, I must have stole it from somewhere. That's pretty good. I must have stole it.
Yeah, because I'm like, man, this is really, really good. I couldn't have wrote this. This is Spielberg.
No, take credit for that one then. It is a good one. It is a good one.
I'll take credit for it.
All right, man. I want to wish you nothing but the best in all you're doing and spreading positivity out there, and I hope it continues to grow. Helping both yourself, but everyone who connects with it as well. I was all in when I saw it a few years ago. I can't remember if it was on Instagram or Facebook. I saw a video. I was like, yeah, this is great. Whatever this is, I want some of this. So all the best with it.
Cool, man. I really appreciate that. I love what you're doing, keeping our pop culture origins alive, and it's super important.
All right, man. Well, you keep in touch, and I'll hopefully speak to you soon. Many thanks to Keith Muise of 80s Summer Camp for joining me and sharing his story here on the Straight to Video podcast. I hope some of you can take something from the chat which might help you or perhaps show some positivity out there to help others. It's not hard to do that, doesn't take long, and it really can make a difference. If you'd like to keep up to date on what Keith is doing, then check out 80s Summer Camp on all social media platforms or just visit 80ssummercamp.com. Also, if you enjoyed the music on today's episode, that is from a band called The Red Decade from Canada, who I aired through one of the summer camp videos, and their song Chasin After You is available to download for free through their Reverb Nation page. Links to this can be found on their Facebook, which is just facebook.com/The Red Decade. So please check them out because their tunes are awesome. And that is all for this episode. If you enjoyed it, please consider sharing the show with your friends. Maybe leave a review on Apple Podcasts or check out over 130 more episodes at stvpod.com. If you want to get even more involved in the show, there's a cool little community of great people on the Patreon, and I'd love it if you'd check that out over at patreon.com/stvpod. But until we chat again, please look after yourself, guys, and speak real soon.